Okay, greetings rockers. This is the first of a bunch of videos we've got with the incredible Richard Williams, who is the publisher of Xenophon Press, which means he knows all the old masters' texts backwards, and he teaches them on his horses in Virginia, just like we do on our horses. So, in this video, we're going to talk about La Guériniere's square, which is actually talking about the Volte, because the small circle, which people now call volts, La Guérinière often defines as a square with the edges rounded off, and he says this is actually the most efficient way in many cases to train your horse, and he explains why. So we're going to go into this, how to use this vault, this sort of little secret hack of La Guérinière, to really start to get your horse balanced. Make sure you watch it all the way through, because towards the end we're going to be talking about how to prepare your horse now for the laterals, and then to put two squares together and get all kinds of good magic with that. If you like it, give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe, let the algorithm know that it ought to be sending more of this cool old dead dude stuff out there.
All right, rockers, fellow horse nerds, we are back with Mr. Richard Walker, who is the publisher of Xenophon Press, and we are grateful to this man because he is the one who goes out of his way to undergo the enormous schlep of publishing. Publishing is a schlep. Publishing is not easy. These old dead dudes' texts, without which we cannot do our thing. You know, if we want to be classical riders, if we want to be classical trainers, we actually can't unless we have access to the texts and the books and the training manuals of the old masters themselves, which means some poor unlucky bugger has to devote enormous amounts of time and energy, because Lord knows you're not going to do it for the money, to produce these books and not do them for, you know, $400 a pop because they're rare books. No, to make them available for kind of 20 to 60 bucks, and we can use these books. So I'm immensely grateful to this man. But not only does he publish them and edit them, he works from them himself. And because he studies them so greatly, so let's say so intently, in such detail, I would say, Richard, your interpretations, your practical interpretations in terms of what you do with your horses and your students of these old texts is, I think, something we can all learn from. So I want to talk to you today about François Robichon de la Guérinière, because he's the dude that sitteth on the right hand of God, as we know, from the 18th century. I know that you are very familiar with this thing called La Guériniere's square. Most people don't know about it. Most of us are endlessly obsessed with riding circle after circle after circle and boring ourselves and our horses to death while we do it. What is La Guérinière square? Why is it important? And how can we use it? Why is it kind of a secret alchemical formula in the dressage art and science?
That's a very good question. Thank you for the great introduction, and thank you for your great work in bringing this information to people on video, you know, on YouTube, on your YouTube channel. It's very accessible. So hats off to you for organizing this whole enterprise, because I haven't been able to publish on video yet. So I think you're doing a great service.
Well, thank you.
So we talked earlier, we've already had a couple of sessions, or a few sessions, on shoulder in and croup to the wall, or haunches out. So
which we can also call renvers.
Right. You can call it a whole bunch of things. Renvers, croup to the wall, haunches out, and shoulder in along the wall. So one of the things, so if we're looking at de la Guériniere's book, School of Horsemanship, you probably need to start on chapter 17, which is entitled On Voltes. So what is a volte? For my purposes, when I teach, because a lot of people don't have this very accessible to them, I basically distinguish for my students. I say, when I say volte to you, it means a square.
Okay.
And when I want you to do a small circle, I'm going to say 6 meter circle. or 8-meter circle, or small circle. Small circle could be circle, the choice of circle of the size that you wish, the size that you think your horse can do, as small as possible without being ridiculous. So I usually, for my students, I say small circle, and they know that if their horse is 6 and, you know, first level, that small circle might be 12 meters in diameter. And if the horse is a pre-St. George horse, that's already shown and developed, the small circle might be a 6-meter diameter circle. So it's kind of relative. Like, we do what is complex enough, challenging enough, but also doable. So I just find, I don't like to argue about voltas being squares or circles. If you look at the chapter on voltas, and these people actually came before us, a volta is really a square. So with that said, and in general, a volta back then was only for advanced horses. These voltas were approximately, the length of one side of the volta would be as short as 2 horses' lengths. So it's extremely small.
Which gives us actually it's a bit of a clue in the name, because volte, voltige, volte, to vault over something, what it actually means is, of course, a jump.
Right.
So I presume that you say it's about 2 horses. That's actually about the length of a canter stride, isn't it? Basically.
Right.
Yeah.
A leap. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
leap.
So if a horse is 7 feet long, plus or minus, from nose to tail, 2 horses' lengths would be about 14 feet. If the horse is compressed, it could be shorter than that. It could be 2 times 6 feet. So this is again relative. And when I'm schooling these, or let's say introducing a horse to these movements, I tend to make the squares larger for the less experienced horses. And when the horse gets more advanced, then it becomes possible to make them this.
What's the value of the square? Why have it? Why is this valuable to us?
Okay, so the beauty of the square is that it is basically it's interval training for the horse. So what we are doing, interval training.
Yeah, okay.
In other words, we're changing, when you do a circle and you do something on the circle, you're pretty much usually doing the same thing around and around and around. In other words, we're trying to make this circle perfect and round on single track, but it is extremely redundant. If you go around a circle 3 times and we're trying to make this perfect circle, if the horse were to do it correctly, all the strides and the orientation and the task of the haunches and the shoulders and the contraction and the expansion would be the same for all the musculature going all the way around the circle. So what happens in a volta is you have corners, and then you have a straight side, and then you have a corner, and then you have a straight side.
So it's a miniature arena, basically.
It's a tiny arena, and there are changes in what you do. So this is on this.
You just hold it under your chin, then we can see it. Then it will go to your back. Okay, École de la Cavalerie, Part 2, got it. And open to the page.
Yeah, so this page is...
Got to come a little bit under your chin again so we can see it. Now hold it up over your face. All right. Okay, lads, those of you who are going to buy this book, this is page what?
This edition, that's page 98.
Page 98, okay.
So basically, and he calls it le volte, which means the volts, the different kinds of voltas. But then the label in French is carré, so the square. And the square, the first square that he talks about, is where you ride the horse straight along the straight section, and then when you get to the corner of your square, you perform a quarter pirouette. So if we're tracking right, we're going to do the pirouette to the right, and this is usually taught in the walk.
The little
first.
turn on the haunches, effectively. Yeah.
Yeah, quarter turn on the haunches while stepping. So not pivoting, not leaving the inside hind leg down, but actually stepping. One could argue that, are we piaffing behind, because the horse is very localized to one spot and the shoulders are making a big crossing movement. And then as soon as they're aligned with this new path, you ride the horse forward. So now forward in collection. And then as you approach the next corner, then you collect and turn the shoulders. The shoulders are making a big move. The haunches are making a small move. So you're always having the horse positioned to the inside with this very mild amount of bend or looking to the inside. But there is a straight section where you're riding the horse more forward. And what happens is you ride the horse forward between the aids. Then you ask the horse to turn, but at the end of the turn, you ask him to stop turning. In other words, you have to, with your inside leg, you have to say, I don't want you to turn anymore. So there's a request here. I'm asking you to turn, but don't keep turning indefinitely, because horses will offer one evasion is that they won't turn at all. Okay, they just won't turn, or they become braced in the bit or braced in the bridle or against your leg, and they just won't turn. Another evasion is that the horse will keep turning and do more than a quarter pirouette and just go around, running away from the outside leg. So your inside leg has to be there to end the turning and send the horse forward. And so that's the exercise. So you're having the horse between the left and the right aids, and between the please go forward aids and please collect aids.
Why does this help us?
Because this is what having the horse, quote unquote, on the aids. This is what, when we say the horse is on the aids, we mean he's between the rider's left aids and right aids and the driving aids and the collecting aids. And the horse is surrounded, I like to say, kind of in the rider's soap bubble.
What Oliveira called the silken tunnel of aids. Yes.
Right. But I like to think of this, a boy in the bubble, and that, you don't want to perforate that bubble, but it's a very soft, it's not a prison. The horse is not imprisoned. But basically, when this will get the horse collected. So so I just want to talk about
right, because as you do the first part of your corner, the inside leg's got to come a little bit under, and then as you do your turn on the haunches a little bit, the outside hind's got to come under, and so then you're going to go straight with both hind legs kind of under your point of gravity, right?
Right.
So it's going to collect. Yeah.
And this should serve to narrow or bring the two hind legs a little bit closer together and closer to the midline of the horse. Or what we don't want to do is we don't want to do these turns quickly. If we do the turn, that's why we're teaching them in the walk. If you do them quickly, what invariably happens is the horse steps too far. Well, there's possibilities. The horse goes haunches in and steps, let's say we're going to the right, steps to the right with the right hind leg. So steps towards the center of the Volte. But more common when you're turning to the right, his right hind leg would step too far under, and the outside hind leg would step out from under the body. So we're constantly trying to shepherd the horse's haunches between our two legs. And when I rode with Gyula Dallos and he was telling me to collect the walk.
Gyula Dallos being a Hungarian super cool dude who Richard has done much training with, and you can find him. We'll spell his difficult name out. He's in Hungary later on, but suffice to say that he's a super cool dude. All right. So when you were training with Gyula,
and my favorite teacher of all time, I might add, he either said it or I got the impression, I came away from these lessons and he said, when you're in the walk, your legs should be a little bit like a clock going tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. So the rider's legs in the walk should not be aiding both at the same time, but we should be aiding with our left leg as the horse's left hind leg steps and is about to leave the ground. And we should be aiding with our right leg when the horse's right hind leg is lifting up and stepping off the ground. That's the only moment that the horse can respond to your leg aid. But so he was always against legging the horse with both legs at the same time in the walk, because one leg, if you're walking, one leg is in a supportive phase and can't change where it's going. It's got half the weight of the horse on it. It's anchored. The only one that has mobility is the one that's about to move. So you're wasting your aiding breath if you use both legs at the same time. So you're basically telling the horse, yes, ignore half of my aiding.
Right. And of course, I guess when I was asking how's this helping us, my mind just sprung ahead to 1 times 10 piece, for example, where you have to go effectively tick tock again. And I remember when I was learning how to do those, and it took me years and years and years and forever, I thought, oh, I can't do them. And then there was a day when it clicked, but it took a while. And when it clicked, I realized that I could pulse exactly as you said, tick tock, without an excessive movement.
Right.
That, frankly, there was no time to make, because the moment of that 1 times 10 piece is so quick, particularly on like a little Lusitano horse, so it goes zup 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 zup. I could totally see how riding this square in this way could begin to put the muscle memories and the physical and sort of mental competence into both monkey and pony together, that it would then prepare you later on for these more complex.
Right. And the walk is letting us do it in slow motion, but basically what you're trying to do is build a hardwired relationship, meaning I make a little vibration with my right leg, and that hardwires a response, because we're floating over or finding that ring of nerve endings on the horse's side that creates a little step from the horse's right hind leg. And then when we float with the correct sensitivity and timing with our left leg, it creates this inside the silence of the rest of our aids. In other words, if this is the only thing the horse that's going on between you and the horse, so there's quiet. So left leg touch, left hind leg step. They happen almost simultaneously. So you're building, in a way, you could argue it's a little bit like a puppeteer and the puppet with the string, so that you're learning to build these connections, these nerve ending or nerve impulses. When you touch the horse on the side, you're trying to create an artificial stimuli that creates this contraction for the leg to step.
Okay.
And that is so useful in piaffe, in any time we want the horse to step rhythmically. So that's what this does, is it sort of isolates. Do you want to talk about the second kind of square?
Absolutely. And I also want to ask, when we had a previous conversation, when I called you from some airport somewhere, you told me that you use the square to teach flying changes. And I found that intriguing, because as you and I both know, you're not going to learn flying changes from La Guérinière. He doesn't really talk about them.
Right.
He talks about counter and gives it a funny name, counter change of hand or whatever. And there's, I think, some reasons for that. So by all means, let's go to the second type of square. But then could you tell me how you teach this non-La Guérinière thing?
Right. Yeah.
La Guériniere's thing.
Yes.
Now, make sure you watch the next of the videos in this La Guérinière Square series, because we're going to talk there about how you develop them into all the lateral movements and use them for rehab. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Please, if you liked it, thumbs up, hit subscribe. Down below, you'll see two really cool buttons. One is for a free intro course, Helios Harmony there, for how to train your horse in the Old Masters style. And there's also a thank you button. If you like what we do, shoot us a few bucks. It really helps us, if enough of you do it, to set aside the time to make more of this stuff. And do make sure to check out Xenophon Press and their invaluable library of Old Masters texts. See you on the next one.